Hello! In this episode of the podcast, I talk with EdBound, a fellow brick filmer. I'll leave a link to all his stuff in the description if you want to check his stuff out if you haven't already. He also mentioned that his birthday is today, well, the day of the podcast being released, so happy birthday, EdBound. But anyways, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Nothing But Bricks. Welcome to episode 15 of the Nothing But Bricks podcast. Today I'm joined by EdBound. Welcome to the show.
Hello. How's it going?
Going good. So to start off, we talked about it already, but cut out again, but cut out before. What inspired you to kind of adopt the style that you're using for your videos?
It's gonna be weird kind of repeating this, but it's like I remember when I was getting started on this channel, and something I would notice about other brick films is that during dialogue scenes, well, first of all, a lot of brick films typically only have dialogue scenes, uh, and they don't really, at least in that time. Maybe I wasn't looking far enough, but quite a few brick films I found had a lot of dialogue scenes where just people would be standing still and talking while they had the voiceover playing. And I remember watching this and thinking, this is not really, keeping my attention very well. I think there's not enough visual stimulation on a lot of these things. So that's something I wanted to avoid when making my own videos. I always wanted to have somebody moving and moving quickly as well. And I think I got kind of like that quick movement sort of like look from the Lego movie. Um, but I never really thought of it as like a style or something unique because I'm pretty sure I saw it in quite a few other things. If anything, it follows like cartoony physics, and it's a cartoon. At the end of the day, these brick films, you can be serious with them, but you can also like have fun with the animation, and you don't have to make them move like realistically. I think a lot of people feel like smooth movement, like smooth is the be all end all. But that's not necessarily true, especially because a lot of smooth movement doesn't really convey weight and momentum very well. Uh, and also just like learning more about animation, like the 12 principles, for example. Um, it teaches you a lot about like momentum, weight shifting, and like just general physics in general and how people move. It's not all just like one smooth motion. There's like different moments in an arc or an emotion where you move quicker because you're gaining momentum, and by the end of the movement, you're usually kind of like you kind of stay still, but you're kind of bouncing a bit. Like move if you move your arm really fast, you'll notice that at the end of the arm motion, the arm swinging. Like I mean, like if you actually move your arm like right now, like I'm doing it right now, you'll notice that like when you end it, it kind of shakes a bit. And that's something I wanted to incorporate into my animation too. When a character's pose was finished, I wanted to make them bounce a tiny bit, and that kind of gave like a nice, satisfying look to it. So I'm like, I like this. So I just kept doing it, and people seem to like it too.
Cool. Yeah, I never really thought about the like I would use easing in and easing out and stuff, but I never really thought about like thinking about like how real life movements can contribute to how you would animate things. So that's pretty cool. But you're saying before how you found like still movements and things during like dialogue and things like that quite boring to be watching in brick films. But do you think that would also contribute to like the um, amount of colorful pieces and things that you use in your sets when you're making your videos?
I think all the colors and the vibrance. I think that might just be a personal taste of mine because I really like. It might just be because I grew up on Nintendo games, so I kind of gravitate towards like the very nice, bright reds and blues, especially the sky. I'm a big fan of blue skies, so I like kind of incorporating that into my animations as well. When they're nice, colorful, and vibrant, and they give off like a glow almost. Uh, so it might not be like I don't like dull colors because I think dull colors do have their time and place in particular settings. Like the world isn't always nice and bright. But I don't particularly think that colors or anything were inspired by watching other people's films. I think that's legitimately just like a personal preference. I usually turn up the vibrancy or the color intensity a little bit higher. especially like when I'm watching, like it also comes from like watching Spider-Man, I think. I really like it when like, or like just like, Marvel comics. Something I really like about Marvel comics is that the colors are very bright. Spider-Man's red is very red, Hulk's green is very green. And I think that I always thought that was something kind of like appealing to look at, and especially if you mix it with Lego, which is already kind of like a cartoony looking aesthetic. I think that also works pretty well together.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Um, what kind of like genre of brick films would you enjoy watching? Like comedy or action, or is there any particular type you'd gravitate towards?
I don't really. This is probably not a great thing to do as a brick film, but I don't really tend to seek out brick films. Most of the time, people actually send me their brick films, and I like watching them if I have the time to. But something I do think I gravitate more towards is, things with a bit more innovative, like animation. Uh, People like doing creative styles where they have nice moving camera shots, um, and really well choreographed scenes. But given like I guess the brick filming scene, there's like a lot of people who are still new to it, right? So you're not always gonna get that. Uh, and that's also one of the reasons why I like making so many action scenes in my films, is because I feel like the action scenes we do get from like the much bigger and more experienced animators, they're kind of few and far between. I remember when I was starting out, I wanted to make it so that way there's a lot of action that was kind of not constantly being put out, but like, being put out at a solid base. Because I think when I was starting out, like the animators who I think would make like the most interesting set pieces and innovative animations were like, the obvious picks like Forest Fire, Keshin, Akash, Lego Productions. Um, and you'd watch these brick films and think, wow, these characters are flying, these characters are doing these crazy acrobatics, and we kind of don't really get enough of that. Like I think like another example of that would be Lego The Force Unleashed by Fancy Pants, but I don't think he's very active anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I mix like stuff that has a lot of, like Spider-Man, for example. There's not a lot of brick films where you can see Spider-Man swinging around and really moving like how he moves in like the movies and stuff. I think that's one of the reasons why I like animating him so much, is because he's such a unique character and such an interesting character to watch in action. But we don't really get a lot of that in brick films. I don't really mind if it's like a comedy or an action or like a war film or something. I kind of just prefer if there's a lot of nice innovative use of Lego animation. There's also stuff like Filmy Guy. His name is Digital Wizard Studios now, but I remember watching his Lego Spider-Man brick film. It's very short, but it's still very fun to watch. Just because of how much he's swinging, how much he's parkouring, and I think that's the kind of the stuff that I really gravitate towards the most. Is just watching like really nice, energetic, kinetic animation, which can be done in any genre. Doesn't have to be limited to just action brick films. There's definitely comedy films that can do it. Like a nice little chase scene or something.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way of looking at things. Like, it's more so like how they go about like the different aspects of production and things. Cool. Yeah. Um, notice in more of your recent videos that you started using mouth animations, but I was wondering what your plans were for like interpreting those more into your videos.
I started using mouth animation specifically with Spider-Man Noir because I feel like now it's not like the most serious story. It's still a comic book story, but I do want it to have some level of impact. And I think adding the mouth movements can kind of add that extra level of dynamicism and dimension. Um, that can kind of help with that. Although it's not always perfect, I gotta say I'm definitely still like trying to figure out how to make it look great. It doesn't always look great. Uh, but I think it definitely adds like such a huge layer of time. Like it essentially doubles the work, because you take the frame once and then you have to go and post and completely re-edit the frame with the mouth movement. and he has to make sure it looks right and it flows properly with the rest of the sequence. Um, so it's not something I want to do a whole ton because I also want these videos to still be coming out relatively consistently, like at least maybe a couple every month. It's definitely gone down a lot since the pandemic, and there's been a myriad of reasons why. On a more personal end, uh, but with mouth movements, I don't think they're always necessary. I think it depends on like the kind of mood you're going for. So like most of my break films are comedies, and I think there's like you can have a lot of fun bits with like a still Lego face, but it can still convey a lot of emotion, um, even if it's not moving. Like especially with comedy, I think there's that whole like say for example you have like an axe murderer or something, but like he has that goofy Lego smiley face. So you can imagine a scene where like maybe he's like violently murdering people or whatever, but like the camera zooms in on his blank expressionless face, and yet despite the face being blank and expressionless, it carries a lot of that emotion. It kind of carries like sort of like uh, unfeeling sociopathic killer vibe. I mean, he's axe murderer, and you can kind of get like some comedy with that. But I think like it's not always necessary to have mouth movements. But with Spider-Man 1 in particular, I do want to incorporate it because with that story, I think I'm trying to go for like a very specific type of atmosphere. And without the mouth movements, they kind of just look like Lego pieces, and he kind of I don't know if it would take most people out of it, but it I remember watching it without the mouth movements, and it did take me out of it. So I was like, all right, I gotta put some mouth movements to this.
You were explaining before how like an axe murderer and things like know like you'd still feel the emotions that they're showing without them showing facial expressions and things. But would you say that would come from like in your videos you'd have voice acting uh, in it? Would you say the emotions that the characters are showing would come from the voice acting or come from like the context of the video?
Well, in the particular case of the axe murderer, I doubt that the axe murderer would be saying anything. It would kind of just be like you're watching them do their axe murdering, and the framing of the camera and the framing of the whole axe murder is like really focused on his goofy blank smiling face. And I guess in that sense the emotion would come from the context of what's going on, but also just how the particular like like how it's just framed. So if you're zooming in on his face while he's axe murdering and all he has is a blank expression, you kind of get a sense for what's going on in their head, despite there being like no actual facial recognition. Like in that sense it'd be that's a very specific example, probably not the best one, but like in that sense you probably get the feeling that they're like soulless. um they have that blank look in their eye while they're killing people. It's like it probably conveys exactly what you want it to convey. I'm trying to think of a better example. Let me go through my videos real quick because I feel like I've done this at some point. I think it might have been in that they scream for they do not know video, or I think it might be the McDonald's help video where where I only use the smiley faces in that video. But I try to use a lot of close-ups and zoom in shots of these characters' faces after they've been told something or after they've discovered something to sort of like get some type of idea for what's going on in their head. You don't really have to make them say anything, but if a character discovers something new and you kind of just focus on their facial expression, even if it's a blank facial expression, you'll still be able to get a lot of emotion out of it. You'll kind of like you're kind of trying to make the audience see like the wheels turn in their head. At least that's what I feel like I'm trying to do when I do something like that.
Cool. Right. So it's like subtle kind of camera movements and things that would help to convey certain vibes, I guess.
I think it's like the audience is filling in the blank in that particular instant.
Oh, right. Yeah. Um, right. Um, so you mentioned before about how you were planning on making a strong Doctor movie based off the video that you put out a good while ago now. But are you still interested in making that? Do you think?
We are interested. We want to like do something interesting with that and like make a feature, but that was also before the pandemic hit. And realistically speaking, like the pandemic, I had a lot of different ideas for 2020. But when the pandemic hit, it legit like it felt like it really swept the rug under a lot of these things because, to be more frank, a lot of when the pandemic hit, my week, my schedule, and everything just changed. Uh, Before the pandemic, it was a lot easier to make these films because my days were so like my weeks were a lot more varied. I'd be able to work on my animations and still enjoy them as if they were just like a normal, like a 9 to 5 or something. But something that I enjoyed. And then I'd be able to take the rest of my time, to respond to messages or hang out with my friends or see my girlfriend or something like that. But ever since the pandemic hit, I also moved like to Toronto right 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. So I'm living alone with a roommate, but I haven't really been, interacting with my roommate a lot because don't want to catch COVID, which is actually pretty unfortunate because my roommate actually did catch COVID on New Year's Eve, and I think if I wasn't, making all these precautions, I probably would have caught it too. Uh, but with the pandemic, a lot of my ideas that I wanted to make, I kind of just suddenly had no real appetite to make a lot of them because it's kind of difficult when the days are just kind of like the same every time. You wake up, you kind of know that for the entire day you're kind of just gonna be in your room. I would go out, like I would go for a walk or something, but there'd also be a lot of people out there because I live in the city, and a lot of people aren't taking this seriously. And that's really frustrating to see, especially when you see the case numbers go all the way up to like 4,000, 5,000 a day. When they're only in August, there were like I don't mean to like talk too much about the pandemic because I know it's affecting everybody. Um, I don't want to get like political, but like it definitely has had a major impact on my channel and how I work. Because there have been legitimately some days where I just don't want to get out of bed. It's kind of hard to motivate myself to get to it. As much as I still enjoy making videos, and as much as I still like enjoy releasing them and seeing what people have to say and seeing how people enjoy them, the actual labor itself has become a lot more intensive. When it's literally the only thing that is going on in my life at this point. I think in people's lives you need a lot of variation to keep things fresh. And the pandemic essentially stripped a lot of that away. I can't see my friends. I haven't seen my friends since the summer. I only saw them once this entire pandemic. And that was still like we can't really see each other because we have to be like socially distant and wear masks, so we can't really hang out. Um, since my roommate tested positive, I have not seen my girlfriend once, and it's been really difficult. I haven't seen my family very often. My sister had a niece, and I haven't been able to see her. Um, and that sucks, missing out on a lot of these huge events. And I also feel like it sucks because I just turned 21. I'm about to turn 22 tomorrow, actually. Uh, but these are like I moved to the city. I was ready to have like this fun city life, young adult life, and it was essentially just kind of robbed. And that kind of like put a huge damper on things, and it made it difficult. Um, so because of that, a lot of my ideas that I had for this year kind of just didn't happen, and it sucks. But until things can really get better, I don't really have any plans. I kind of just do what I got to do. That could, like just try and make things that can make myself happy in the meantime to wait it out. Um, in terms of videos and stuff. Like right now, I'm making a video that's about Spider-Man. I like making Spider-Man videos, like I said before, because I really like animating him, and I really like making him move, swing around the city, and fight his enemies, doing all those billions of flips and stuff. It's why I make so many Spider-Man videos. Just because I think he's probably the most fun like I have when I'm animating, like when I'm animating him doing his thing. Watching it all come together. It's like a legitimately satisfying and fulfilling experience.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear you're having a rough time anyway, but hopefully things are going to be looking up for everybody anyway. This as the year goes on.
It's hard, yeah. It's hard to even complain about it because I feel like I'm kind of also privileged. Like I get to stay home, right? I get to actually be safe. A lot of people don't have that luxury. A lot of people are very like they're not secure right now. So it's also one of those things where like you feel a guilt for even thinking these things because it's almost like it's not fair, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, from personal experience anyway. Well, I mean, my own opinion would be like everyone has their own like difficulties with it. So when people do want to talk about it, I'd be totally fine to like talk to another person about what their struggles would be, and then kind of um, you know I suppose like empathize with whoever needs to feel like they need to be empathized with. But I appreciate that you're willing to share your own experiences on here anyway.
Well, thank you for listening. I mean, we're all going through it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Um, hmm, yeah. Um,
I hope I didn't derail the entire conversation because it kind of did get a little bit salty there. I don't. It's kind of it's hard. It's hard. It's one of those things where it has such a big impact, but it's like, how can you talk about this without completely derailing a conversation?
yeah, I get that, but it's fine. But do you want to continue talking about brick films, or do you want to
Yeah,
keep?
yeah, we can definitely continue talking about brick films. That's just I just wanted to answer like the previous question in like a truthful manner. Because a lot of people do ask like, what's happened to Strong Doctor? What's happened to this? What's happened to that? And the truth is just this, had plans, and right now we just gotta put them on hold.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said before, anyway, hopefully this year is a lot more like a lot more of an upbeat kind of year for people. But moving on to the next question. I would see the brick filming community as kind of a safe space to show off like content and things. But how have you found uh, the community's like response to videos and things?
Personally, for me, it's been pretty positive. I don't, like one thing that I don't quite experience is like hate, which is I'm very thankful for. Every now and then you do get a comment like, "Hey, where's this?" or "Where's that?" Or like, "Oh, you did this, how dare you?" kind of thing. And it's like it's one of those, it's one of those things where you don't know how to respond to a particular question or comment. Um, but for the most part, I've had like a pretty positive experience. But I think that is also like a very unique experience because I have seen people be really like rude to each other and bad to each other here too. Something I noticed is that there's a lot of people who really hate it when they think a smaller creator copies somebody else. And this was something that's always been true. Because I remember when I was younger, in like the 2010s, like the early 2010s, Forest Fire was like one of the biggest creators at the time. And this was when he was like a lot more active as well. And if you made a Lego Batman brick film, you are going to get called a Forest Fire copier, and people will hate you for it. And this is nothing just like this happened to me, but it also happened to a lot of people. And there's now something that I'm noticing that whenever I watch like other brick filmers, like I try to go into more obscure brick filmers or newer brick filmers, I would see in the comment section this is like you're ripping off EdBound or something, and I'm like, huh, this is kind of like not the. I mean, I never really saw it that way. Maybe some things can be a bit similar, and some things do align, but at the end of the day, right, like everything that we make is influenced by the stuff we've seen, and it's just kind of been transformed in one way or another. Maybe some of the new creators, I think maybe they haven't had enough influences to really like refine a certain taste, so it can feel a little samey to others. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, who really cares if it's copying or whatever? This is a YouTube video. Like, it's not like anybody's. It's not like the most serious thing in the world. And even if somebody is copying me or whatever, like word for word, I don't mind. It's just like I'm over here sitting like I'm at 125,000 subscribers. So if somebody is inspired enough to make something that's similar to what I make, like that's not like taking away anything from me. It's not uh it's not like an issue. So I don't understand why a lot of like other people have an issue with it themselves. It's one of those things that's always been around. Uh and if you think you're like, if you're getting called like a copier or whatever, just keep making what you're making, Don't listen to the the haters. Ugh. I don't really like using that term that much. But I wonder, don't is that something that you find a lot of people like talk about? People copying people.
Um, I haven't really come across it much, but like it wasn't. Well, I took part in the FAC competition that just ended like a couple days ago, and the way that my brother and sister wrote the video, and then I animated it, but it was basically like kind of similar to yours, because we both like took it as like change, as in like coins. So, so like it wasn't a hate comment or anything, but someone was saying like, "Oh, this is kind of similar to EdBound's interpretation of the theme."
I mean, we didn't talk to each other at all during the THAC. I don't think anybody talks to each other during THAC because everybody's so busy making their THAC entry. So it'd kind of be impossible to even know. But hey, man, that's the thing, right? I think it's kind of like now it's not hard for me to be in this position where everybody says, "Oh man, you copied this guy," but it's like seeing another guy make something that, and they made it just because they wanted to make it, and seeing in the comment section like, "Oh, you copied off of EdBound." It kind of puts me in a weird spot personally speaking because it's like I don't think they did. I think they just kind of wanted to make something, and now I feel like I'm kind of responsible for ruining somebody else's day in a sense. Like it's hard not to feel like that sort of like weird guilt, I guess, from that. But I think that's probably the worst I've experienced, and it's not even that bad. It's not that bad of an experience. So overall, I think the brick film community is pretty all right. A lot of great talented animators who I think haven't gotten the spotlight that they should have. Because YouTube is weird. YouTube is one of those things where it's like the only way you can really survive and thrive off of it is if you're constantly making stuff. And the truth is, a lot of people don't have time to be constantly making stuff. A lot of people are in school. A lot of people have their own jobs. I got really lucky, I think, because I was able to I dropped out of school, out of film school, because I didn't think it was for me. I didn't like it that much, and I was looking at the industry and I'm like thinking to myself, I do not want to be in this industry. It feels like they're prioritizing the worst aspects of filmmaking, and I don't really want to be a part of that. So I was pretty lucky that I was able to have a few months to myself to kind of work on the channel, and suddenly things just started kicking off, and I was able to just ride that momentum. But a lot of people don't get that.
Well, I was actually just talking in the last episode of the podcast with my older sister about like how the YouTube algorithm keeps like rewarding like the long like whoever can make the longest video gets pushed further on the algorithm's kind of
Mm-hmm.
thingy. So whoever can make like whoever can stretch out their content the longest is the most rewarded, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, especially with animation, you can't really expect to be doing that. I mean, there is, you can kind of trick it. I think is if if you make a lot of stuff, pretty consistently, and I think that's how I was able to manipulate the algorithm in some sense to my favor. Like posting every Monday and not missing a Monday was a huge help because people like knowing when there's going to be another video for one thing, which makes them more likely to subscribe. Um, and YouTube also, I think, notices that if you're being consistent, uh, because you're essentially getting more watch time, right? But that's the thing. Not everybody has a week to make a video, especially like a decently long 1 or 2 minute video. So it's legitimately like I think it is very difficult for brick filmers in general to kind of get off the ground on this platform because of that.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that myself anyway. But that like when started the podcast, I was trying to do it like weekly, and then uh, I had to take like short breaks in between for different like reasons. But one of the times that I did, like the most recent one, got a way more attention than I was expecting, and then I had to take another break, and that kind of affected YouTube's like recommendation system or something. And then when I uploaded the most recent podcast before this one, it didn't do anywhere near as well as the one before it because of that.
Yeah, I compare it a lot to like juggling a ball or like if you're hitting a balloon in the air and trying to keep it off the ground. Um, if it hits the ground, you're going to be in a tough spot. because it's like you lose momentum and you have to gain it all back. There has definitely been moments I noticed where, like, I would take a little bit longer to make a video, like Spider-Man Noir 2, for example. Um, and you see the analytics, and like, taking a break or taking or like not adhering to your schedule, it really can kneecap your channel. Um, and you even see it with even with like Forest Fire's videos, for example. And I've been saying his name a lot in this podcast, but it's hard. I think he's doing pretty well for himself right now. He's been streaming a lot lately, but like, you take way too long, or like you take a long break in between projects, and suddenly the people who were once subscribed to you kind of forgot that they were subscribed to you. Uh, and that can really affect how your channel is doing until you kind of rebuild that momentum back up. YouTube is very fickle, I think, and you shouldn't uh, equate views to how talented you are, because that's just not the case, or like how good you are. I don't think, like, equating views to your self worth as a creator is a very dangerous thing to do. If you're not getting very many views, don't get discouraged. It doesn't mean you're not good at animating. It just means that you're probably not. Your momentum isn't, like, you haven't built enough momentum. If you've been making a lot of stuff, um, consistently, and you feel like you're still not getting it, just keep going. You gotta keep going until eventually, you know, one of them gets off the ground. And if you've made a lot of stuff by then, that's probably a good thing, because anybody who clicks on whatever video is getting attention, they might look around and see, oh, this guy has a lot of videos, meaning they're probably going to make even more, which means I would want to be here for that. I'm going to subscribe. Having a lot of videos is a good thing.
I totally agree with like keeping that momentum going is a big part of like keeping the keeping the like algorithm on your side, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely been frustrated as well when a video wouldn't do as well because of the algorithm again. Like compared to other videos, like I'd end up comparing it to other like view counts that I would have gotten on like the highest view count that I would have ever gotten, and then thinking like, oh, but it's not this, so that means that people didn't like it or something.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
Because I'm looking at the stuff I make. On 1 second. Sorry about that. So you were just talking about how, like, view counts and how it can be kind of discouraging to see that your new video, or a video that you might have worked on, isn't doing as well as a previous video.
yeah,
Um, and it's like one of those things where it's like, well, you look at a lot of people's videos, a lot of talented animators' videos, and you see that their most viewed video is typically some 13-second like meme post, and oftentimes their best work, the work that they actually, like, work on for like months and months on end, and like they labor over it, it's probably not as well, received view wise. And that's kind of just the nature of YouTube, and the internet in general. Honestly, you have the memes, um and, like, the the popular stuff that usually gets brought to the forefront. For example, my Sonic video, my Sonic movie in 3 minutes, that's my most viewed video on my channel, but that is nowhere near my favorite video that I've made. That's But you kind of just got to deal with that reality that we kind of just live in this sort of, everybody likes watching Sonic, or everybody likes looking at these memes and stuff, and that will typically be what's pushed to the forefront. The thing that you don't work on as much. Like, one of my favorite videos, I think, is Chef vs Samurai, but I worked like a month on that video, and it got a decent amount of views. I'm pretty happy with how it did. But the next day, like overnight, I made epic customer service, and that literally only took me a night to make. And yet that video has double the view count of Chef vs Samurai, and it's just like, all right. So you can't equate hard work, dedication, and like skill to views, because that's just not how it is. Okay, it doesn't have double its view count, but it has a lot more views. So you can't really look at views as like the be all end all.
yeah, definitely. I'll definitely have to keep that in mind going forward. Um,
I will say it's very easy though. It's very easy to not feel that. It's very easy to equate views to your self worth, and it's also very easy to feel very discouraged if something underperforms. Like, that hurts. It actually does hurt. I like if you spend a lot of time on something and it doesn't do as well as you want it to, it feels like it doesn't necessarily feel like a waste of time, but it does feel like something like something that you can't really get back. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
it can be legitimately like it can actually like it can actually get to you, and that's why I don't blame people for thinking that views mean everything either, because you know it's like a tangible value or measurement that's being placed on your content. Ugh, I don't like that word either. Content being placed on your video. I think it's because I grew up in a term in the YouTube era where we all said videos. I just don't like what the new people are saying. Ugh. No, I'm just kidding.
Um, right. Yeah, that's a very important thing that a lot of people, I think, kind of fail to remember when, like, it's like you're saying, like, it's easy to end up thinking that, like, um, the views determine how good something is, but then it's also like um, just takes a bit more time than someone might think to build up an audience.
hmm And you can never look at like somebody who started later than you and is doing better than you, because a lot of it is luck, a lot of it is circumstances. Everybody goes at their own pace.
Yep, definitely. But moving on to another question that I have written down. Are there any movies or TV shows or games that you would like to see Lego make into a Lego set?
Team Fortress 2, actually. I would love to make Team Fortress 2 animations, because that is a game I've spent literally like probably 50% of my life on. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I spent like a lot of high school playing Team Fortress 2. When I should have been out socializing, but you know what? I was really into playing Team Fortress 2. So I would love to see Team Fortress 2 Lego set. I would love to see uh this might be all video games actually, but this is never gonna happen. But if it's not obvious, I'm a huge fan of Earthbound. It's one of my favorite games. Mother 3 is my favorite game ever, which is in the Earthbound series. I would like to see a Lego set, because I would like to also make some Earthbound animations, but that's literally never going to happen. I can 100% confidently say that will never ever happen, at least not in my lifetime. Because they're not even bringing those games over to North America, so Nintendo doesn't care about them, and I doubt Lego would. Donkey Kong is probably something that's more likely. I like Donkey Kong. I want to make Donkey Kong animations. With Lego. So that's actually something I do have a bit of hope for. Movies and TV shows. Uh, I think Lego is doing a pretty good job with the superhero stuff, mostly because that really makes sense for them to be making. Because everybody loves superheroes. I love superheroes. I grew up on them. Spider-Man is literally the first movie I ever watched in theaters, and that's why I make so many Spider-Man movies. I think it's one of those, Spider-Man had me young, right? So now I essentially owe my soul to the character, as ridiculous as that might sound. But like movies, the thing about movies, I guess, is that most movies don't really require like very specific looking characters. Like the superheroes do, because they have their costumes and stuff. But like if you're trying to make like a Parasite Lego set, you know, you can just do that with normal Lego like people, because they're just normal people in that movie. And imagine that Parasite in like 3 minutes. I just watched that movie again, and it was pretty good. It's always good to watch. It's a great movie. One of my favorites. But I mostly like animated movies, anyways. Like Leica, Kubo and the Two Strings, and Paranormal Normally are like two of my favorite movies. But I don't really want a Lego set of them. As for TV shows, Futurama would be fun. I like Futurama a lot. So like, imagine like getting a Bender minifigure. uh, I know they made Sesame Street recently, so they're probably going into more shows. Um, what about you? Do you what would you want out of a Lego set?
Probably Just Cause, like the video game, because I think the like to see how they would make the grappling hook piece uh, that he uses would be pretty cool.
Just cause I've never played that. Is it good?
Um, well, it's just kind of like a mindless shooting thing where you just like blow a lot of things up for points, kind of. But the main
Ooh, this sounds fun.
but one of the main mechanics that they focus on is like the character's grappling hook thing on his wrist, where you can like connect two cars or something together with the grappling hook and then like release it from your own wrist and then just like merge them together to blow them up and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Do you get to swing around a lot?
Yeah, yeah. You can like grapple onto high places and then like parachute off buildings using that mechanic and things.
This sounds actually like a lot of fun. One of the main things I look for in a video game is the movement, and that's why I like Team Fortress 2 so much because I play the scout and he can double jump and run really fast, and that's like all I need, right? That's also why I like the Spider-Man video game so much, is because the movement is so much fun to move in. So this sounds like a game that's like made for me. If you can move around and like be creative with how like you get from place to place.
Yeah, and you can also like there's GTA type mechanics in there as well, where you can just like take people's cars and stuff.
Just taking people's cars. Imagine if people just did that in real life. This is mine now. I mean, they do, but like not as often as it happens in GTA,
Yeah,
and not as easily either. In GTA, it's all like you just give me your car, and that's it. You just throw the guy out, and then the police just aren't chasing you.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. But yeah, it would be interesting to see like a Just Cause Lego set because it's also like set in kind of jungle type city kind of combination type area. So it would be cool to see what kind of areas they would put into the sets as well.
Sounds pretty cool. I think Lego should make a lot more. Uh, I want them to stop making so many vehicle sets. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see some more sceneries like they used to make, like the castles and like, nice buildings. I know they make a lot now, but like maybe it'd be cool to get more jungle stuff, more trees that weren't like $1 billion.
Yeah, I'd say for the Earthbound stuff, the like knockoff brands that make like custom figures might make some of those one day.
Maybe. I guess the good news about that is that those characters aren't very like uh high concept designs. Like it's just like some kid in a baseball cap and like a striped T-shirt. You can probably make that in Lego using like pure figs or pure pieces. Is that what they're called? Purist?
Oh yeah, I think that. Yeah,
Purist pieces? I'm pretty sure you can easily make like a Nest minifigure, like using already existing Lego pieces. I'm gonna Google it right now, and yeah, it's possible. People have done it. Doesn't look that hard either. You can make Sans in Lego. There's a lot of characters I like that you can make out of Lego pieces that are already existing.
cool. Yeah. Um. So, sorry. Moving on to the next question. So, do you prefer to work on the longer kind of projects like Spider-Man Noir, or would you prefer to do like the weekly videos?
This is very much like a grass is always greener type of question. It's like, um, you know, there would be long stretches of time where I would be spending to make a lot of short videos uh in a row, and I would like doing that until eventually, I kind of start pining for a more ambitious piece like Spider-Man Noir, and then I make something like Spider-Man Noir, and it's like, whoa, that took so long, and I'm kind of exhausted doing that. So let's just take a break from making huge, long videos and just kind of spend the next few weeks making something that's more short and easy to produce, and something that's like fun and quick. Um, and it's like a cycle, right? And then I get back to doing that for a bit, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I've had my fun doing this, but I got to get back into making something cool and ambitious, right? And it's like I don't really have like an objective preference because it's usually just depending on the context of like what I've been doing at that time. It's like also with claymation I find if I spend too long make too many brick films in a row, at some point I'll be like, all right, I want to get back into claymation. A lot of it really is just like how I feel, and a lot of how I feel is just based on what I've been doing. But there's no real preference. I think personally, maybe like the long videos like Spider-Man War, for example, will probably be remembered more in the long run, which makes sense, right? Because they're more ambitious and they're more um, and I try to make them more legitimately interesting. But that doesn't mean that the short videos, like the cat, every cat, the cat that's like flying and he destroys his owner. That doesn't mean that they don't have their place too. I like watching those and kind of just spending a small amount of time on them Because I think you need a bit of everything, right? Because not everybody wants to watch a 12-minute video, um, and not everybody is content with just like these 30-second to 2-minute videos either. The variety is nice. I think I'm the same way too, right? I'm not always content watching a 12-minute video, but sometimes I am. Uh, I'm not always down to make like a movies in minutes, but sometimes I am, and that's when I make those. Like I just made Iron Man and Incredible Hulk recently. But after making those two videos back to back, I kind of realized there's a lot of dialogue I animated in this last month, in the last 2 months actually, which is why I'm making the Spider-Man video right now. It's kind of like a TV show intro, but essentially every shot I want to make like a really cool action, Spider-Man shot. And this is mostly to kind of scratch that itch I've been feeling about wanting to animate like a lot of innovative, fun set pieces. I think that's a good way to describe it. Actually, a lot of it, what I make is just kind of like scratching the itch. I feel, like I just made two. I just made Iron Man and Hulk, and those were a lot of dialogue heavy pieces. So now I want to make something that's more action and uh, stylistic. And then I'll make that, and then I'll realize that it takes a lot of work, and I'm like, all right, that was fun. I'm gonna make something small and easy to make next, because that's kind of what I'm feeling. It's important to like listen to what you want.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the video anyway, the Spider-Man one. But yeah, so it's more so like for like I found whatever like you're saying, like whatever you'd be feeling at the time of making the video is like important, because then it also shows in the video that you're making if like you're enjoying kind of making the videos that you'd be making at that time.
Mm-hmm. I say this a lot, but like variety in what you do in both like your work and in your life is very important. It's important because you always want to keep things feeling fresh, so that way it doesn't get stale. And that goes like beyond just like the type of videos you choose to make. It also goes like into how you make them or how they're presented. Um, it's good to try new things, but it's also if you don't, if you want to stick to something that's familiar, you can also do that. I think you don't have to like at the end of the day, the way I kind of think about making videos is that I make what I like to make, and if I watch my video and I can genuinely say that I like it, um, then chances are like-minded people will also like it, regardless if it's like something that maybe they weren't expecting at the time or they want something else. And it's like I don't want to put anything off the table either, you know, like Iron Man 2, Spider-Man Noir 3. Those are on the table right now, and they're gonna be coming. But if I want to make sure that I'm enjoying making those videos too, I have to also make sure that I do what I want to do, um, to work up the appetite to make those videos.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, like with what you were saying before as well, I forgot to touch on it, but when you were saying like you'd like be kind of making like weekly videos and then decide you want to make something kind of a bit longer and that would take more time to make, and then kind of like cycle back to the weekly stuff again. Like I've definitely had a similar kind of thing where like I'd spend a long time on one kind of project and then I'd find like it would be enjoyable at the time, and then I'd realize I don't really want to get like spend months again on another project right now. So then I'd go back into the weekly kind of stuff where it's like quick and yeah, quick and fun, like you were saying as well. And then just recently, I've kind of started to get bored of that as well. So now I'm gonna start a longer video again. So yeah,
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like the grass is always greener,
yeah,
on the other side. Whatever you're not working on is suddenly the thing that you want to be working on.
yeah,
It's really weird how brains work, but you know what? It's what we have, and so we just gotta adhere to it.
yeah. It's also fun that like the creative freedom with it as well is like part of why I enjoy it so much.
Hmm. That's also a pretty important thing, I think. If you feel like you're making what you want to make, I'm pretty thankful because the stuff I want to make happens to also be the stuff that's like popular, like Marvel. Um, I feel like it's really hard to get off the ground with like original, like super original stuff. But like if you're making Marvel or Star Wars or DC films, then you have a leg up because a lot of people like those properties. And I don't think there's any shame to it, you know. I think a lot of people. I think there's like original creators who might look down on people who like latch onto IPs. But at the end of the day, I'm making these Spider-Man videos because I like making them swing. You know, I'm just it's pretty fortunate that a lot of other people also like to see that too. A lot of it is just circumstances.
Hmm, cool, yeah. That yeah, sounds pretty interesting. But you were talking about how like your plans for the Spider-Man video, but do you have like you don't have to give anything away if you don't want to, but do you have any other plans for any future videos?
Aside from Iron Man 2 and like the rest of the MCU, and the Spider-Man War, there's not really much that's coming to mind. I have a few vague ideas here and there. I like my cat, like that cat that I've been using in the last couple videos. Uh, I kind of like that character, so I might be using them more. Just because cats are fun, you know. They're the best animal in my opinion, because they're like everybody loves them, but they can also kind of have that side to them that's like destructive. They like pushing things down, they like knocking things over, and sometimes they scratch you. But it's like, regardless of everything they put us through, we'll still love them and dote over them and wait on them hand and foot. And that's kind of like a concept that I like. Uh, like this cat will like probably be flying around the city, avoiding like law enforcement, but he'll still be welcome at the train station. So maybe I might do more with that. I have a like okay, I know I've been saying Spider Man a lot, but there's this one skit I have in mind about Spider Man going to the about going to the laundromat, right? But his local laundromat, the one that he usually goes to, the nice one, has closed down. It might be because of the pandemic, or whatever. So he has to go to this kind of rundown, dirty one instead. And then hijinks ensue. And this is based off of me doing laundry in my city. I think that's the thing. That's another thing that makes it kind of hard to like come up with ideas. Is that a lot of my videos do come from personal experiences, like Rent to Pay. If that wasn't obvious, it's about the rent payments and how despite people no longer having a lack of income, and I'm getting political again. Sorry about this, but like how a lack of income, a lot of people were kind of just left hung out to dry. Right? They had no money to make money, or they had no way to make money once lockdowns hit, and they're still asked to pay rent, which is ridiculous. Spider-Man Far From Home 2, when Mysterio is roasting Spider-Man's living situation. That's kind of like how I feel about my own living situation right now. Like this might be a little bit TMI, but I'm not living too great. This is kind of a cheap apartment, and there's many issues with it. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how I'd feel like if I had people over, if I had people saw how I lived. Uh, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I made that video. Um, because it's like the cereal comes in, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but he says a very specific "Wow, you live like this" kind of line, and I'm like, huh. So I think living in the city was also something that I wanted to do because it probably would have given me more ideas to make skits like that. And I definitely have had like my share of inspirations, but being inside all day definitely does hamper a lot of that because you don't really get to participate in human life when stuff like this is going down. So it can kind of be hard to draw from experiences to make new things. So that's why I don't really think I have many ideas right now. Um, Aside from the stuff I have planned, a lot of times some stuff just comes out of nowhere too.
Yeah, I definitely like just get random ideas just out of the blue as well. Like like coming out of the writer's block kind of stuff after a while, trying to think of something.
It can be hard, like to like it's hard. You can't really force anything. I think if anything, like if a small, tiny, random thought comes into your head, maybe try to keep it, write it down, and see if you can expand on that. You don't have to like think of like an entire story in like one sitting. You can kind of just think of a small concept. Like, uh, let's see. A lot of my videos come from just like really small, like one sentence concepts almost. Like I'm just gonna go through my discography real quick to see where I can understand this from. So like for example, when I made the greatest policeman of all time, uh, that kind of just was I kind of just wanted to make like a fun little cop drama that was kind of like 70s inspired. And then that kind of like grew into what it eventually became about, like this sort of like story about these two cops who were like one was corrupted, one was not. I don't know how much I feel about that series in the current day because I made that in 2019. Um, but another one I remember was Vegeta must be employee of the month. That actually came from one of my friend's tweets, and she said that she had a dream where she was working with Vegeta, and he was laughing at her because she couldn't fold clothes as fast as he could. So then I was like, huh, this could make a fun video. So and so from just that one concept, I was able to make like a 5 minute video out of it. A lot of it is just like just small things that grow into like longer things or like bigger things. It's like the root of a tree, and then the tree grows.
Yeah, cool. Hmm, yeah, the like having a small idea and then expanding it into like a 5 minute video or something is also like goes back to the like having a lot of fun with the creative control kind of thing with like making the videos. Well, from my own experience anyway. Um, but yeah, that sounds pretty interesting anyway. So I found that when I go to like write down a script for a video and then storyboard it, the idea of like what it's gonna look like and everything is very specific in my head, and then the execution tends to be quite different to
Oh
how
yeah,
I originally pictured it. But
always happens. I think it happens to everybody.
yeah,
Because obviously, like our imaginations are limitless. But the truth is, our resources for what we have to make are not limitless. So we have to make a lot of compromises when we're bringing stuff to the screen. So I usually just try to get it as close as I can to what I envision in my head, but it's not always going to be one to one. And I think that's just something everybody deals with. I think like the most vividly when I can feel or when I can see the images in my head is when I'm listening to music. I think music is probably one of the best inspirations because I'm pretty. I hope everybody else does this. But like when I'm listening to a certain song, I can almost think of like a music video for it, like Old Town Road, for example. The whole cowboy shootout. Um, and even something like for Sans Endgame, I remember listening to Mambo Number Five by Off Topic, who by the way, rest in peace, Off Topic. Um, and I'm listening to the instrumental of this track. I'm just thinking like, damn, this is so funky. This is so fun. I can imagine like a really cool little skeleton battle between Sans or really any skeleton, um, in like this in like a particular dark place. And it's this, and then it became Sans Endgame. And I think the music itself actually had a lot to play, or like had a big impact on why I even made that video in the first place. He actually uploaded the instrumental too. No, that was just like a random thought.
right. So it's kind of like trying to come up with a way to visually further tell like a story of some sort.
Yeah, I think music is honestly, I think music is literally like the thing that makes a scene memorable or iconic. If you can really like use the music and the visuals to work hand in hand together, it can elevate the scene to like no end. And I think watching Baby Driver kind of like cemented that idea in my head.
All right, cool. Um, so is there anything you'd want to talk about to like finish off the podcast?
Hmm. Well, I gotta say, I know I complained about the pandemic and stuff, and that's been on my mind pretty much every day. But I have to say, I am pretty thankful for being able to even be here in the first place, and I get to make videos for a lot of people who enjoy it. Um, I also talked about views and stuff, and how you shouldn't like equate that to your self worth. But if you are struggling, and if you think that you're not getting the views that you want, I get it. Like if you're feeling like you're discouraged because you're not getting the attention you want, like that's a legitimate, valid thing to be discouraged about. Uh, but all I can really say, is that like it can be really hard to sort of separate that goal, right? Being viewed and having an audience. But ultimately, making videos because you enjoy it and because you want to be good at it is probably like, how you really get to that point in the first place. Because I've been making videos at this point since like 2008, right? Like I had my first YouTube channel when I was like 9 years old. I was making claymations back there. Unfortunately, that channel no longer exists. But I do have my second channel still up on YouTube, and that's called Cricking. And I was making videos back then. I was making brick films back then when I was like 10, 11, 12. Um, and I was like, I remember, yeah, like I would make a lot of videos, and they weren't getting as many views, and it would be discouraging. Uh, Eventually, I actually like ended up giving up on brick filming because I was entering high school, and I was like, I'm too old to do this. But thankfully, I got back into it around film school, and the whole film school experience kind of left me wanting a bit more. So I ended up dropping out, and I was like, well, I might as well just, since I'm not like, one of the big reasons why I dropped out was because I felt like I wasn't making any films, and I couldn't join the other students to make films because they lived in a town that was 3 hours away from my town. I had to bus to school every morning at 5 a.m. to get to my 8 a.m. classes. So I felt largely isolated from the rest of my peers, and I wasn't able to make films with them because of that. I can't really bring home like a $300 camera on the bus at 9 p.m. at night, especially because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get robbed. Uh, so getting back into brick filming was a great way to sort of alleviate that, and I think I got into the right mindset when I started doing that because I started making brick films because I felt creatively frustrated with film school, um, and I just wanted to make something. And I think it was at that point where people started to notice. Weirdly enough, I wasn't looking for that attention, but I thankfully I did get it, and now I'm able to do it now. I'm able to do all this now because of that. I think it's important that it's hard to separate, what like you want and where you're coming from with your intention of your videos. But an audience can see when you're doing something only for views, and an audience can also see when you're doing something because you're genuinely passionate about what you're doing and you enjoy it. Um, but like again, it's a hard thing to separate, right? All I gotta really say is just keep going, and if you're not enjoying making what you're making, then maybe take a step back, maybe take a break, and maybe come back later. It's hard giving advice too, right? Because a lot of it is circumstances, and I feel like a lot of it, it's like I remember reading this one guy who said this one actor, I think he said he made it right, but when asked for advice for other aspiring actors or something, he said I don't know what to tell you because it's like, say it's like I felt like I won the lottery. I'm not going to tell you to go and just buy a bunch of lottery tickets then because chances are you're not going to win too. Uh, and that's not a fault of your own or anything. That's literally just the way the sort of YouTube platform and just the general infrastructure has been built. I don't know if there's any right way or wrong way to do things. Personally, I'm only just everything that I'm saying is just a product of like what's worked for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. So it's hard saying things because it's like I don't want to ruin everybody. I don't want to ruin anybody's life or give them bad advice that doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's pretty good advice. Like saying that you don't really know where like what advice to give as well,
Mm-hmm.
just because because of circumstances, like you were saying. But thanks for agreeing to.
Hey, man, no problem. This was a fun podcast. I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, you too. I'll leave a link to your channel and stuff in the description. But not that you'd need it or anything. But yeah.
Thank you for that.
Hello, once again, and goodbye, I guess, because, it's the end of the podcast now. But I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for listening. I'll leave a link to EdBound stuff in the description, so definitely go check his stuff out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, like, share, whatever you want to do to support the podcast. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.